Oman relations with the United States, of course, goes back to centuries. Not many people know this, but it's one of the oldest in the U.S.-Oman partnership and friendship is one of the oldest in the region. It really dates back to something like 200 years, at least, when the first American ship, the Boston Rambler, sailed to the port of Muscat in 1790. So it goes as far as that. And by 1880, the first consulate, U.S. consulate, was established in Muscat, and the two countries formalized their treaty, their relationship through a treaty of amity and commerce in 1833, which was the first bilateral accord between U.S. and Arab Gulf states. By 1840, Ahmed bin Nu'man, he was the Sultan's envoy. He sailed to New York on a ship, a famous ship called Sultana. And he became the first Arab diplomat to be accredited to the United States. And Sultana was the first ship to sail to the United States. And Oman also, since then, expanded their trade and economic relations. In 1958, for example, they signed the treaty of amity, economic relations, and consular rights. By 1972, there was an embassy. They exchanged embassies in the early 70s, and also. If we're talking about the recent history, Oman has cooperated with the United States and given the United States military facilities in the country in the 1980s, especially during the Iran-Iraq war, and that agreement in the 1980s has been updated and renewed in 2010. And by 2019, as recent as that, we have, the countries created strategic framework agreement to expand their military activities in Oman ports, especially in Duqm and Salalah. Oman participates with the United States, for example, in the Middle East Strategic Alliance, which is like, the equivalent of an Arab NATO, MESA. Also, Oman, supports and works with the United States against terrorism in many issues, and is part of the global coalition that is led by the United States. And Oman and US have this FTA that they have signed in 2006. It's one of, I think, only 3 countries in the region that Oman has that. So Oman has this strong relationship with the United States. It appreciates this relationship with the United States. The United States, as we know, is a global leader and a hegemonic leader in the region, and it has, to a very large extent, been able to create safe, if you like, maritime security, safe shipping of oil and gas. And it also has created security for the whole region. So when the United States get into conflict with also in other neighboring countries, and Oman, as I explained earlier, enjoys this kind of relationship with neighboring countries. And we're talking here about Iran in particular. Oman enjoys very good relationship with Iran. Iran is a neighboring country. We share with Iran also, the Strait of Hormuz, which is a global choke point. And the Omani relationship with Iran has been able to kind of keep that strait safe to a very large extent. So, and Oman is trusted by its friends, by regional countries. So when there were issues between the United States and Iran, for example, Oman has stepped in to help and lend the helping hand, especially when, during the Iran-Iraq war, there were, of course, the issue of U.S. Prisoners, and they were captured during that time and after that. There were so many detainees that that Oman has, U.S. detainees in Iran that Oman has helped to free, and that has also built a relationship, if you like, and trust between both the United States and Iran to a certain extent, with the help of Oman. And when the nuclear issue became a big problem for the world, and the fear that Iran might develop nuclear weapons, Oman has helped to create this venue for the United States and Iran to come and talk and negotiate in secret, without the media and without the pressure of the public diplomacy and the media as well. And it took them several years where Oman was hosting negotiations between Iran and the United States, later on joined by countries from the Security Council, from Europe in particular, as was known as the P5+1. That led to the signing of the Iran nuclear agreement in 2015. And that Oman, in Oman, we see that as like one of the many things that Oman does quietly, without much noise, to help friends, to help neighbors, and to help humanity, to avoid conflicts and to avoid wars. And this relates to what I've been saying before. This is ingrained in the Omani culture and the Omani psychology, and it is part of how Oman sees its role. It's to create peace and create conditions for peace and create space for dialogue and create trust. And it's only through trust that we can avoid so many conflicts and misunderstandings. And Oman does that. Oman does not brag about it, and it does it very quietly, low-key. And sometimes the world does not know about what Oman does. But in many sense, it has helped the United States in many ways in its relationship in the region.